So, Sonic Frontiers, one of the most important things in this recent renaissance of the Sonic series, no matter how much people on Sonic Twitter's hate boner for this game wants to tell you otherwise, is nothing short of a miracle in its success. After years and years of disappointments and letdowns, this game, after a very terrible first gameplay reveal, was just and no pun intended, the step in the right direction for this franchise. It felt like a return to form in both gameplay and especially story. And then there's Sonic Adventure, one of the other most important things in the Sonic series, which is also nothing short of a miracle and a success. After years and years of disappointments and letdowns, this game was a step in the right direction for this franchise. It felt like a return to form in both gameplay and especially story. Never realized how similar these two were. Anyway, Frontier Story was a breath of fresh air. After a decade of very bland, boring, and honestly badly written Sonic stories in the games, characters mattered again. The story took itself seriously again. There was scope, there was character development, there was tension, there was everything you can want for a Sonic story. So why do some people have an issue with it? Now, I'm not gonna lie and say there aren't any problems with the story. The pacing is all over the place, the voice direction is wonky, some of the dialogue is questionable, and the animation, while it can look good at times, can also leave a lot to be desired. And oh, wow, it really is like Sonic Adventure. So yeah, Frontier's story isn't perfect, but I still consider it one of my favorite Sonic stories, like I do Sonic Adventure. And I would always defend it from people who think it's a bad story for some reason. However, there is one topic in this discussion around Frontier's story that always gets brought up by the vocal minority that both interests and confuses me on how they came up with that conclusion when it comes to the individual story elements of Frontiers. And that is, Frontier's character arcs are just Sonic Adventure 1 character arcs retreaded all over again. And yeah, that's quite the statement. It's not even just Sonic Twitter saying this. Even big Sonic tubers say this about Frontier's story.
This feels like a steady growth for all of these characters, but if you take a step back, these are essentially the same story beats they went through with Sonic Adventure. It's not entirely one for one, but you can still draw parallels easily enough. Tails became his own hero, Amy stopped being the damsel in distress, stopped waiting around for Sonic to save her, and Knuckles got to dig in more to his own history. And yeah, I don't know, they didn't really go too far with Knuckles, did they?
Now, I can see that the two stories have similar elements to their stories, and character arcs that can be comparable, but I wouldn't call them a retread in the slightest. Stories in long-running series can have story beats and arcs that are similar to each other, but can be entirely different given the context. It's basic storytelling. You can see that in a series like Metal Gear, where plot beats and arcs are similar to one another, even if that's the point of the games, but they are still different given the context. Hell, even in the Sonic series, certain people's definition of retreading arcs has been a thing even before some people started claiming Frontiers and other modern Sonic stories did that. I mean, if you don't believe me, let me ask. Isn't Shadow's arc in 06 just a retread of his arc in his own game? Because both deal with whether he'll be manipulated by the literal devil to turn on the world that wronged him. Only by the end of his arc, Shadow rejects them and lives his life the way he wants to live it. Or how about this? Isn't Princess Elisa's arc just a retread of Chris Thorndyke's? Both brown-haired, blue-eyed children who are suffering from abandonment issues, then they meet Sonic, who changed their lives, but due to their abandonment issues, they have a hard time letting go of Sonic until Sonic tells them to suck it up, and they finally get closure. Is that not a retread? Hell, are most Sonic stories not retreads since they involve Sonic meeting new people, and through life-changing experiences, they grow because of him and his actions? I mean, Tails, Amy, Shara, Blaze, Elise, Chip, the list goes on. Most people right now will tell me no. Shadow the Hedgehog has Shadow spend the game learning not to live by the desire of others, while 06 actually shows the result of that lesson. Elise spends her story learning to hold on to hope when in despair, or in Sonic's case, smile. While Chris learns to find his own will, which meant to him that true friendship is free will. There are differences. They're going through different experiences, and the context that make them different. Well, that's how I see it with Frontiers. So, to come back to this, I want to look at the arcs in Frontiers, mainly Amy, Knuckles, and Tails, and dispel the notion that they're just the SA1 arcs all over again. Now, this isn't about what one does better than the other. Each story in these games has its positives. Yes, even that one. The whole point of this video is to contrast these arcs that some people think are literally the same. Let's start with Amy.
Yay!
Now, sarcasm aside, I want to say one thing. I love SA1 Amy. Game-wise, this is my favorite iteration of the character. If I ever wrote for this series, and I were to write her, I would use this version. It's why I will never say I hate this character because of the potential this story gave her. If I made a Mount Rushmore of things I consider peak fiction, I would have Breaking Bad, The Empire Strikes Back, the Paw Patrol movie, and SA1 Amy on there. To me, it's the definitive Amy story for the games. And Frontiers Amy is okay, I guess. I don't really care. Now these two stories do have their similarities to them. Both have Amy taking care of these small innocent creatures out of the goodness of her heart. Both have Amy standing up to Sonic when the two come to blows. Even had scenes where Amy's personality and willingness to protect things she cares about are what makes soulless machines grow a heart by the end. So yeah, that's some similarities that can get considered the same thing. But there's one thing that sets them apart. What is Amy's arc in both of these stories? Well, in Frontiers, after realizing the truth of what the Coco were, and how two lovers spend their final days embracing one another, Amy realizes there's more to love than just how simplistic she thought it was. She now wants to spread that kind of love to the world. Whatever the fuck that means. Yeah, I know I said I wasn't going to say which one was better than the other, but I do feel the writers kept Amy's end goal to her arc way too vague for people to understand, to the point where it feels redundant. Now, is this arc any similar to what SA1 Amy's arc was? No, not really. I tend to believe that since Amy shares her love in other games, SA1 included, that people assumed that was her arc in the game. But it wasn't. The whole point of SA1 Amy's arc was that she wanted to improve on herself and be the hero that she wanted to be after seeing that she could take care of herself and do things by herself.
私も頑張らなきゃ。エミーは自分のできることをやるわ。それでいつかあいつを振り向かせてやるんだから。それから追いかけてきたって遅いんだからね。
It's so beautiful, man, I swear. Oh my god. Hell, one wants Sonic to respect her more, while the other is sad that she has to leave Sonic for a while. You can see the difference between them, right? It's hard to say Frontiers is a retread of her arc when the end result isn't even remotely the same. I can go more into greater detail on that in the Amy video that I have been working on. You can get my full analysis on her soon. Even if I'm 5% done with the script. But I promise, it's gonna come out. I think. I hope. I'm certain. Once I get into the right headspace. I think. I hope. Let's just get to the next part. I think we can all agree, both people who love and who hated Frontiers as a story, that Knuckles had the best story of the three for one simple reason. It did him justice. Seriously, I can safely say Knuckles in Frontiers was the best this character has been handled in literal decades. This game, and the animated prequel that will be used here, brought back so many things that people loved about Knuckles. His brotherly rivalry with Sonic, his duty and responsibility to the Master Emerald, and delving deeper into his character. It's a true return to form for him. So I say all of this because I have no idea why people say that his arc in Frontiers is anything like his arc in SA1. I mean, yeah, they both talk about his role as the guardian of the Master Emerald. Yeah, they both have Knuckles having deep monologues about it.
物心ついた時には、この空に浮かぶ島にいた。マスターエメラルドという巨大な宝石を一人守って。理由なんか知りやしない。ただ、そうだったというだけだ。今も、そしてこれからも。
Angel Island. A land of miracles, of mysteries. My home. I am its guardian. I watch over the Master Emerald and every living thing here. That is to say, all the plants and animals. Any other kind of civilization has long since disappeared from the island. I do things on my own, and that's just how I like it. I don't need anyone else to get by. But sometimes, I wonder how things would be if I hadn't been given this responsibility. Why was I chosen for this duty? Perhaps it's karma.
But to me, these are all surface level comparisons. To me, this right here feels like people purposely didn't understand Knuckles' arc in Frontiers to even make that comparison. Knuckles' arc in SA1, even if I feel it's a bit underdeveloped, is about Knuckles realizing that he doesn't need to know the history of his people, out of fear that something bad may happen if he did. That's not in any form Frontiers' Knuckles' arc. His arc is about him confronting how lonely he is being the last of his kind, bonding with the Coco, where they try to take care of their home just like he tries to take care of his own home. He then realizes that he needs to leave his island for a bit to go on his own adventures, to find that sense of freedom that Sonic goes through every day. And there lies another issue that, just like the Amy one earlier, people conflate it because it happens in the other games. Knuckles has already been off his island. It's like the game is trying to make us forget about all that. And I can understand the confusion. Due to Sega's very poor handling of Knuckles' character post SA2, he was kinda butchered during that time. He was always there in the games with no explanation on why he was there. His duty as a guardian of the Master Emerald was irrelevant. He was mostly the butt of the joke, and well, he was there for the sake of being there. All his development and potential were all done away with him just being Sonic's friend. So I can understand why people, just like the Amy arc, feel that it's rather redundant and conflated with other games like SA1. However, I think we're understanding what Knuckles' arc in Frontiers is really about. But before this, let me ask a question about Knuckles' role in the 2000s. Why is he in the games most of the time? Because he's always helping his friends with saving the world. But what happens after? The logical answer is, he goes back home to Angel Island. But what does Knuckles tell Sonic what his lifestyle is to him?
I'll admit, I do envy your lifestyle. Freedom to go where you want, when you want.
Sonic's lifestyle isn't just saving the world. It's about going wherever he wants, whenever he wants. Because unlike Knuckles, Sonic doesn't have a home. He doesn't have any responsibilities or duties. He's bound by nothing but the wind. God, did that sound corny? That's why you see in the games whenever the day is saved, Sonic just runs to someplace else because he can do that. One of the best examples of this was the ending of Unleashed, where he realized that he will never see Chip again. The thing he does next is run off to that next adventure, never looking back. That's what Knuckles would want for his life going forward. That's what his arc was all about. Will the series pick up from that? Only time will tell. But I hope y'all now know why his arc is different from all the rest. Now for the last but not least, Tails. And boy, oh fucking boy, do we have to talk about Tails. Even if you haven't heard the other two comparisons, you've definitely heard of the comparisons with Tails.
Tails' arc is a response to the criticism he faced in Sonic Forces, resulting in an arc that repeats his journey in Sonic Adventure. He spends the entire game effectively criticizing his own writing instead of just being Tails.
And again, they have merit. They are more or less about Tails confronting his fears and coming out of it as a better hero. However, just like Knuckles, there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to Tails' character in this game. It's at a point where I question if people purposely misinterpret it due to not wanting to understand it or just personal bias. Like stuff like, his arc is basically damage control, and is telling us he'll be a better character in the next game, which, no joke, I've seen people who've worked on the series say this out of nowhere. And I just think it's a shallow way of looking at this. You're literally just ignoring what he goes through in this story. I don't need Tails to go guns a-blazing or do something cool to show that he's grown. I just need him to grow. And Tails saying screw all that after learning Sonic is gone due to the cyber corruption and deciding to save him like Sonic has done for him and everyone else in the game is growing. A far cry from the scared child who couldn't even deal with the fact that Sonic was gone. Look, if you think Tails' arc is just damage control, you're ignoring the obvious. Referencing past games to give context isn't lazy writing. It's literally how fucking storytelling works! Sorry. Let's just get back to comparing and contrasting. The one major difference when it comes to Tails' arc in SA1 and Frontiers is the fact that in SA1, it was about him gaining confidence, while in Frontiers, it's about him regaining confidence. Two very different circumstances the character is going through. SA1 Tails was about him finding the courage to save the day without the help of Sonic, seeing that he can't always rely on him. Frontiers Tales, however, is about him getting over his past failures and not letting them determine who he truly is. It's why he relates to the Coco like Amy and Knuckles do. It's why Sonic laughs off the self-doubt he was showing at each turn. The scene isn't just lol Ian Flynn references, it's Sonic pointing out all the good Tails has done on his own, which includes what he did in SA1. For God's sake, the story even uses Lost World as a positive. I repeat, it uses Lost World as a positive. It's a 10 out of 10 story for managing to do that. What Sonic is telling Tails is that you have to take the bad with the good because that's life. He's the definition of moving forward and never looking back. This is again nothing like what Tails went through in SA1. Sure, he does want to be less like Sonic's sidekick and wants to handle things on his own, but he isn't going through self-doubt because of his own failures. His trust in Sonic isn't being tested. Hell, one has Tails proclaiming he has to leave him to grow, while the other has him literally going back to Sonic to tell him the good news. How are these the same? As I said before, yes, they are similar in story beats, but they are two very different stories that are being told for Tails as a character. I don't understand why people underanalyze this specific arc alone when talking about Frontier's story. It just reeks of disingenuousness. One last misconception I want to talk about, which consists of all three of the characters in the story, and that's about them making a big deal about them not being able to see each other for a while, even though they already do that in the games. I want to clean up that one with the fact that it's Sonic that leaves his friends all the time, and this time it's his friends that are doing that to him now, because it's something that he normally does. And I think I'm done. This is a video I did not think I was ever going to do, since in actuality, it isn't a big of a topic compared to my last videos. But to me, it was an interesting topic to get off the ground. I love Sonic Frontier's story. Like I said, it's one of my favorite Sonic stories, and sure, it has its own hiccups, but the good generally outweighs the bad in my opinion. It literally has one of my favorite portrayals of Sonic. It gave me Sage, and once again, they made Knuckles a cool character again. There is so much to love about this story that I feel some people just ignore due to personal biases, or they just couldn't understand the point the story was going for. In fact, there is also an aspect of Frontier's story that I think not only do people miss the point on, but also seem to misunderstand a certain important figure in the series and what they are actually like as a character. But that's another story for next time.